Welcome to Unplugged and Unstoppable, the antidote for being black-pilled. And in this episode, we meet Hedi Green, who now lives in the 6th Canary Island called La Gomera, previously living in Jersey and taking to the streets to protest a bit like I did in Bristol. She did the same in Jersey, where she was working in a self-employed business. We're going to hear all about Hedi's transformation and all the difficult decisions she had to make in order to make ends meet, but also create some freedom. And so we're going to look back where Hedi's gone from today, and looking back, we'll see that she made some amazing decisions. So this conversation I hope you find really inspiring. I know I did. And let's go and meet Hedi now. When I open my eyes now to look, I see so much more. So welcome to this week's episode of Unplugged and Unstoppable. And I'm delighted to have with me tonight Hedi Green. And welcome, Hedi, first.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on this podcast. Very excited to be here.
No, you're very welcome. So I think the theme of these podcasts is very much about people who've either been through a challenge or a transformation process, and they've learned how to unplug and hopefully then become unstoppable. And it's for people who are either in the transition process, curious about it, done it before, like to teach others, all stages of that process. And when we first met, Hedi, this week, I was delighted to hear about your story of where you are today. But let's go way back. Let's go back now to before COVID, before 2020. Tell us about your life. What was it like?
Okay, so let's call it BC because life was so different then. So let's look at 2019 because that sort of encompasses very much, how my life had been going for the previous few years. So 2019, I was in a second year of a competitive skydiving team. So that was very exciting. There were lots of trips, training trips all over, obviously the UK, wind tunnel, and that sort of stuff. So we were working towards the UK Nationals. Also, my eldest daughter was getting married in August 2019, so there was a lot of preparation for that. And basically, I've been in the wellness sector for the last 30 plus years. I had a busy clinic in Jersey, and also I had a thermography clinic, that's medical thermal imaging in Jersey, Guernsey and the Isle of Man. And I was planning to open up 2 more clinics, one in Oxford and one in the Isle of Wight. So that was the sort of 2020 plan. Okay. I also did quite a lot of traveling in 2019. I went to India with my youngest daughter because she was actually at school at my old boarding school in the Himalayas, right up north. And so we went there for the graduation of her year group. She didn't actually graduate, but that's her story to tell. Okay. So we went right up to Ladakh, to the Kardungla Pass, and so lots of travel. My life was very, very fast paced. I was juggling a lot of different things, debt from previous failed business, also juggling an expensive sport. But life was good. But I knew that 2020, I needed to actually slow down and actually start paying for, especially my expensive competition sport for the last 2 years. So yeah, that was, okay. It was just, everything was fast and everything. Yeah.
And we share a little bit of history in that I used to live in Alderney, so I know Channel Islands pretty well.
The quirkiness, yes.
And yeah, I really enjoyed my time as a young chef back in my early 20s.
Wow.
And I came back to Bristol and went into IT and didn't really look back after that. But I did enjoy island life. It was really, really nice. Enjoyed it a lot. So you had a pretty high energy, but fulfilling, busy, lots going on. Nothing to really pick at, really. Nothing. Obviously, you were going to sort out some debts the following year, but that's just life, isn't it? That's just planning.
Absolutely. I think when you sort of live life to the max, there are things that you have to spin a lot of plates, shall we say, and there were a couple which were beginning to sort of start to wobble a bit. I knew I had to sort of get the skydiving competitions out the way and then just take a little bit of a sort of a slower pace. Yeah, so that was pretty much my life. I was enjoying myself.
Skydiving for competition, how does that work? Do you have to land on targets or something?
Well, there's lots of different types of skydiving competition. So what you're talking about is accuracy. So
Okay.
what I was doing was four-way, so basically formation skydiving. So there's four of us in the team. Well, there's actually five because the fifth member is the camera person.
Okay.
And so I was in a four-way team. So basically, it's lots of different formations. And so these you have to practice and practice and practice. And so when the competition comes, you don't actually know what combination of formations are going to be picked out the bag.
Okay.
So you have those the day before, and then you just do loads of practice on the ground because you know what each formation is, but then you have to join it together.
Wow.
So that was absolutely fantastic because I've been skydiving for over 20 years. So I've done lots of fun jumps. I did quite a lot of free fly, which is more sort of acrobatics in the air, which I loved. Also did a couple of high altitude jumps. These were all in America, helicopter jumps. Also, I've got, I think it's about 14 wingsuit jumps to my name.
Have you really?
The last but one I thought was going to be my last jump ever. It went a bit wrong, shall we say.
Wow.
But anyway, I did one more jump after that. This again was in America, and yes, I was basically jumping a suit which was far too high octane for my level of ability. It's a bit like passing your driving test and going in a Ferrari. Well, in fact, you should really just be in the Mini Minor just for a few turns. Yes, and then the opportunity came in 2018 to actually join a skydiving team, which was actually a dream come true. And there were four people in Jersey who were prepared to commit. Well, actually five, because we had our camera flyer. And yeah, we were prepared to commit financially. We raised a little bit of money sponsorship from just one local company, and the rest of it we sponsored ourselves. So it was the most incredible experience, and I'm so pleased that I did it then, because obviously opportunities, after 2020 were much diminished.
Oh, that is amazing. The wingsuit thing terrifies me. I've seen loads of it on YouTube and I've seen one of the kind of leading guys in the UK talk about how he surveys a drop before he does it. Presumably you went out of a plane, not the edge of a rock.
Yes. So basically what you're talking about is proximity flying. So that's basically an extension of base jumping.
Yes.
Which is a massive leap from jumping out of an aeroplane with a
Sure.
wingsuit on, because there's basically you can't make any mistakes because you will just hit the rocks. So yes, there's a lot more sort of regulations, and the equipment has moved forward enormously, the whole sort of technology. So when I did the course, it was a bit like the Wild West, because in America, if you sign away your life, basically, you have to sign every single waiver. I think it's about 20 pages, and also they video you signing it and saying that you've read everything. And they obviously want to see that you've got, extreme sport insurance. And then after that, it's like, well, it's your life sort of thing. So there was a group of us that we did this course with a guy in Zephyr Hills, and he'd never actually taken a course for, should we say, jumpers, who were all sort of reasonably experienced. There was a lot of military people involved. There was actually one of the guys who was a former Harrier jump jet pilot. He was a terrible skydiver, but anyway, he certainly knew about sort of aeronautics. So we did the course, which was really crazy. And then we just picked a suit, and he said, oh, just choose one of those first. And then as you feel a bit more confident, which these days you wouldn't be able to do that. You'd have to jump with what's known as an intro suit, which is, it doesn't go particularly fast, and you have much more maneuverability with your arms because they're sort of split between the wings, so you can lift your arms up. But the suit that I had, you had to actually start unzipping stuff and so there was a lot of sort of sewing and unpicking to do before you could start getting control of your canopy. But anyway, we survived it. It was quite extraordinary what we did survive. But I wouldn't do it again. I've sort of moved on to other things now.
Very, very exciting though, and great to have put on the bucket list. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
So tell us about what happened then 2019 into 2020. What's going on in your mind when you first hear about
the virus?
Yes.
Do you know, immediately I was like, yeah, really? And so, of course, we were all watching the mainstream news, weren't we? Because there wasn't sort of too much of alternative media. And so I was watching it and I'm like, no, I don't buy this. Because I could see the predictive programming that went before. I think there was a movie with Kate Winslet, Contagion, I think it was called.
Yes.
And so I sort of was already aware. I thought, yeah, right. Oh no, we've got this virus that's come along, all from China, and there's all these people dropping dead here, and these crisis actors. From I wouldn't say from day one, but I thought, okay, I'm going to play the game and just observe what's going on. And then our I can't remember if it was our chief minister at the time, but said, oh yes, we're just going to have 2 weeks to flatten the curve and all of that. I thought, what do you mean? We all stay inside? Well, I thought, no, this is all a bit ridiculous. Anyway, it it sort of went on, and we were all, oh, how many people had died, and we were showing all of this stuff happening in Wuhan and what have you. And right from the get-go, I knew something was off.
Okay, so I'm hearing your intuition and spidey senses and critical thinking. Now I've got to take you back a little further, if you don't mind, Hedi.
Yes, no problem.
What was your awareness of, I don't know, corruption and stuff like that? Had you had what you might call an awakening to these things in previous years?
Yes. In fact, we can go way, way back to my early schooling, my early education, because I spent my early years in India. And so I didn't actually go to school. I went very sporadically because we were traveling and, there was reasons we had to actually move around India. And so it was only the last sort of couple of years that we were there that I went to this school that I later sent my daughter to. This was an international boarding school in the foothills of the Himalayas called Woodstock School. My father got a job as the bursar there. There's quite a big story behind it, but maybe another time. And so I learned about this, that, and the other, and then we came back to England in I think it was 1970, and I didn't go to school for the first year. I was homeschooled with my mother. I was very happy to do that. I was a very content child, and then I got sort of pretty much thrown into the British education system. And it was absolutely horrific for me. And right from the age of 9, I think I was thinking, why do I need to learn this stuff? I'm sitting in this horrible classroom. Everything is concrete. I have no idea what the teacher's talking about. It was just at the time when they were converting to decimalisation. So I didn't know about the old system, but I had to learn the old system to convert it to the new system. And I said, well, why can't I just learn the new system? Because we're not going to use the old system. Oh, no, that's the way that it is. And anyway, apparently it was a very stressful time for me, and I only found out a couple of years ago that my mother took me to the doctor because I was so I got so stressed about going to school. I didn't want to go, and the doctor put me on Valium. Now I had no idea that I'd never had Valium in my life. And I said to my mother, I said, what do you mean the doctor prescribed Valium for like a 9-year-old? And I said, well, how did that work? She said, well, you were very floppy, but you weren't stressed about going to the school. And she realised that just wasn't working. So right from, I would say, the age of 10, I questioned everything. Why do I need to learn logarithms? I will never want to use this in my life. So why am I wasting my time getting stressed that I don't understand it? And the only thing that I really enjoyed at school was cooking, and I loved sport as well. The rest of it, to be honest, I didn't come out with a great sort of, I think I got a few CSEs. That was the Certificate of Secondary Education, which was sort of like the dunce's end of the GCSEs.
You're a bit like me. I came away with 5, I think.
Yeah. Something like that. And I couldn't wait to leave school. So I left school at 16 and I went to, I call it the College of Knowledge, and I did a business studies certificate. I think it was a BTEC or BSE or something like that. So I questioned from a very young age, and I also questioned the medical establishment from a very young age. Again, through things that happened in India and through some really horrific stuff that I observed happening to my older brother, who got very sick in India. He got leukemia, and this is one of the reasons we had to travel all around India to different hospitals. They didn't know how to treat it. And, he was having these awful lumbar punctures without anaesthetic. And because there was no one to look after me, I was basically given a colouring book. like in the next room, and I heard these awful screams and my mother nearly passing out, and they're trying to shove this needle into my poor brother's back. And so obviously that subconsciously, made me be very wary of sort of medical stuff. And it was really when I had children. So I've got 3 grown-up daughters. I had my first daughter when I was 27. And of course, it was the whole sort of vaccine thing that was coming in. And I'm like, hang on a minute, not sure about this. What's this MMR thing? I had measles in India. We all went to measles parties. We all did very well. And so I started researching that. And there wasn't really a lot of information around. And I felt so coerced by the medical establishment that I was being really, how can I say, a mother, and I didn't care, and very irresponsible. And so I did concede, and my eldest daughter did have 1 lot of MMR. I think she was 2 at the time. But it was just after that time that I did find a lot of information. I think it was called The Informed Parent. It was like sort of a what doctors don't tell you thing. And it was all about vaccines. And also I connected with a lady in Jersey who is actually a professor in phytobiophysics.
Okay.
And she'd actually developed a formula, flower formulas. And it was sort of like the antidote to all the nasty stuff in the vaccines. And so she immediately went on that. And after that, that was it. I was just completely immersing myself in the whole pharmaceutical industry. And then I met an incredible activist called Martin Walker, who wrote a book called Dirty Medicine.
Okay.
And actually, he became a friend of mine, and I sponsored some of his work sort of, later on. So that was the first book I read, Dirty Medicine. And I'm like, what? The pharmaceuticals industry are out there for their own financial gain, and that, they don't care about us. And I was absolutely shocked. I thought all medicines were good. Thank God for anaesthetic. Thank God for antibiotic, all the sort of stuff. And so this 34 years ago.
That's
and
phenomenal.
So I started going down rabbit holes from a very young age.
Okay.
And then I was questioning things like, when swine flu and bird flu, and they brought out Tamiflu and all the jabs. And I was writing letters to the local paper back in 2009 or 8, whenever it was, and they did publish them to their credit, but they were very, very well researched letters. And so basically I've had 2 more daughters, and none of them have got vaccinated. None of them had the HPV vaccine. I actually stood up at the school and I questioned, why are we not looking at the adverse events in Japan, for example, with HPV, in the whole thing. So they looked at me, and all of the parents were just sitting there thinking I'm this sort of crazy woman standing up. So I've been sort of standing up against the system for a very long time. And so when the whole COVID pantomime started, I'm like, is this how they're going to do it then? I thought, okay, I hope they don't bring out a bloody vaccine, because that's going to be an absolute non-starter for me. And as we say, the rest is history.
Amazing. So just rewinding there, you've done research, presumably looking at medical papers, going to libraries, because at the time there's no internet, and you've also found people that knew on an island with 60,000 population, or was it 70?
No, well, actually now it's 105. Probably back then it was maybe 80 to 90. But basically I found Martin Walker through somebody that I connected with in the UK. Okay. That had her own supplement business. It was Royal Jelly. Irene Stein, gosh, these are names going back. She's quite an incredible lady. Wrote a book all on Royal Jelly, so I learned all about that. Very, very interested. I met her in London, went to her office, and she actually put me in touch with Martin Walker. So back in the day, you actually met up with people. So I did go backwards and forwards to London quite a bit. We had a place in London, so it was quite easy to do that. So I met with Martin, and it was email back then. Papers were emailed to me, and I read stuff, and I ordered books. There was a book that I read about AIDS. I think it was What If Everything You Thought You Knew About AIDS Was Wrong. I can't remember the name of the author. Okay. So I read that, and I'm like, oh my God, this is outrageous. People don't know about this stuff. So yeah, back in the, how can we say, sort of late 90s, early 2000s, it was email, books, connecting with people, and just being very focused on it. And yes, we did have the internet, so I did start using it, but certainly not to the way that it is available to us now.
Okay, well, I'm so impressed. I mean, my medical research pretty much started in 2020. Like
Oh, right.
everything, the whole shooting match. I think I'd been down most of the other rabbit holes by then. But so that's interesting. And looking back then, was when COVID started to happen, what happened with you? What you must have been so kind of on high alert. Tell us about the next 6 to 12 months.
6 to 12 months. Well, the thing is, I did play the game because they said all work stopped, so nobody could work, which was pretty brutal for me because I was a client-facing therapist, so I couldn't transfer my work to online, which a lot of people, because Jersey, as you know, is a big offshore financial jurisdiction, so most people could still continue their meetings and their working by Zoom. I couldn't do that. So I was sort of left thinking, good God, I've got this huge debt which I need to service. Hence, telling you about the
Yes.
expensive 2 years in a competitive skydiving team. And also I had 4 mortgages, which and bills, and I only had £3,000 in my account. That was it. I didn't have any savings, nothing, nada. So I just thought, how am I going to do this? Because that's less than 1 month of mortgage and all the other stuff. And so I just took the view, well, everybody's in the same boat. So I just had to phone everybody up. I had to phone the bank up, Amex, whatever other credit card, the utility bills. And I just said, look, I just can't pay. I'm sorry. There's no money there. Just to let you know, you won't be getting any money from me. So everybody was very, very nice and understanding because, of course, nobody had ever been in this situation before. But because I had all this time on my hands, I certainly wasn't watching Netflix. I was connecting with people with regard to common law because I heard about somebody. This was actually a friend of mine in the Isle of Man because I've had a thermography clinic there, so I got to know quite a few people in the Isle of Man. And she said, "Hedi, you've got to connect with this lady. I don't know if I should mention names, but we can always do something with it. It's a lady called Shem Allison.
Yes.
And she basically has got out of paying her mortgage because mortgages are unlawful, mortgages.
That's
And
right.
I was very focused because I had 4 of them. And I thought, wow, if I can find a way to get out of paying my mortgage because I've been had by the banks and all of this. So anyway, so I joined that group and they had weekly Zoom chats. And so there was lots of other people on it and, we were given lots of information to read. So that was quite a big rabbit hole that I went down because I learned all about the straw man and about legalese and law and Universal Declaration of Human Rights and how banks are they're the biggest banksters, criminals out there, and that banks cannot lend money that they don't have, and they don't have money to lend. It's all promissory notes. And anyway, we're obviously not going to talk about that. So that's the first big rabbit hole that I went down because I knew the rest of it was all BS and I wasn't going to go along with it. But I just thought, just to keep the peace, I'll just, stay inside. Where I lived in Jersey, I could go for walks. I had my lovely dog at the time. So there was none of that stress that a lot of people had in cities. My youngest daughter was with me because she couldn't work. She was working as a nanny, so she wasn't allowed to go to home. So it was actually quite a nice time with her. And so my time was spent learning and connecting with people and also trying to connect with people in Jersey that were of the same mindset. So there was a group called Jersey Truth Seekers, which was set up on Facebook. And so I joined that. And also I was doing a lot of research into 5G and all of that. So that was another big sort of area that I spent my time researching, which was huge. And I met a lady in Jersey who was very, very knowledgeable. So we connected there. So the little sort of network of connections was absolutely fantastic, but I was being very proactive with it. I wasn't sitting back thinking, this is all a bit weird. Let's see what Netflix we can watch and get completely absorbed in that. It's a bit like bread and circuses, isn't it?
Yeah. And just to close the loop on something you just said, is the reason we're here today is because Simone and I from Event 202 were doing a live stream and you must have requested some information. And
Yes.
I was replied to everybody personally just to make sure I wasn't breaching any GDPR rules. And you kindly replied. So we're here because of that live stream.
Absolutely. Because I looked at, your name was familiar and I thought, Robin Campbell, hang on a minute. It was sort of like in the dark recesses of archive items. And I looked at the date of the email that I sent you. I thought, gosh, December 2020, those dark days. And then I do recall about the Event 201, which I joined. And obviously, sort of continued my research in that area. And look, here we are today in 2025.
Yes.
Connecting, but also connecting in a way where we want to help people with solutions.
100%.
Solutions for their health and solutions how to get out of the beast system. Because let's face it, there's people sort of going round in circles in a holding pattern thinking, I'm not quite sure where I'm going to land with this, but if you don't do anything, you're going to crash.
100%. So before we get to what you're doing right now, let's just catch up. So you've connected with some others. Did you make yourself or your voice heard on the island?
Just a bit.
Tell us about that.
I was not one to be quiet about it. I'm just trying to think when I started making my voice heard. Well, I was very active on social media because we couldn't really get out and about. And then I connected with some other people. I think this was when we were sort of like let out, and I'm not quite sure of the timeline, but we connected with, it was a global movement, freedom something or other, wasn't it? Do you remember?
World Freedom Alliance with Dolores
That
Cahill.
was one of them, with Dolores Cahill, and there was others, but there was also a movement where everybody basically went out to claim their freedom. So people all over the UK and I think the rest of Europe. And so basically there was a crowd of us, a small core group, thought, well, we must do something in Jersey on this day. So anyway, through social media, Facebook and all of that, we did have rallies where we walked through town and people brought their banners and it was, freedom. It was all very, how can I say, ad hoc.
Okay. But it's quite easy to make yourself known, though, in a small island. You're still going to be quite visible, though, aren't you? People will talk.
Absolutely. People did talk, but what was great about these gatherings is that people could see that, you're questioning this as well. It was a great community that you were not alone. And so for that, I basically stood up and started talking, and I've never really sort of been someone who can stand up, but I was so passionate and so fired up about our freedoms being taken away and small businesses crashing and people not being looked after, not getting supported by the government and all this sort of stuff. So there was somebody there with a megaphone, and anyway, I just started talking, and I thought, where is this coming from? It was like sort of inspiration coming from above. And it was like, wow. And people were saying, oh, thank you so much. You said just what we were feeling. I feel so happy that I've connected with other people who are thinking the same thing. So basically that grew, and we started doing, I think it's called Stand in the Park.
Yes.
So it was one of the parks in Jersey. Every Sunday, we just put it out on one of the social medias that we're just going to meet at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, whatever it was. Anybody who just wants to come along, bring your flask of tea, and we'll just chat and just meet with people. So it was all about connections.
Yeah.
So it started, there was just 5 of us, and it was like, oh, hi. And then there was a few more, and then it ended up, I think there was about 20, 30, 40 people.
Nice.
And then we could see that the police was sort of like looking and, oh, what's going on? This is the time when we could gather.
Yes.
But I knew that we were being observed. And then there were quite a few more rallies when things started getting really stupid, and people started getting really angry about it, the people that we were awake, that were aware. So there was quite a few more gatherings, and we had to be very careful because there couldn't be an organizer as such, because we knew, and this went out on the sort of the local news, that anybody who's organising an event will be fined £10,000 for doing it.
Yeah,
so we were like, oh, shit, what? And I was like, well, hang on a minute. So then I thought, well, people are going to the shops on a Saturday, and there's going to be more than 5 people in the high street. So, if there's a whole group of people that decide to go to St Helier at a certain time and meet at a certain place, the Royal Square, which, ancient lawful history say that this is a place that we exercise our democratic right to gather and to freedom of speech. It was all of that. That was, that wasn't wiped out. That's where learning about the law came in really useful. And so I don't know why they thought that I was one of the organisers. This was quite extraordinary, really. So I was getting called from the deputy bailiff's PA and the police and this. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. We're exercising our democratic right. I don't know who's coming along. It's nothing to do with me. But yes, just to let you know, I will be going into St Helier. And yes, and if there's something going on, then great. And so anyway, that carried on. But also I knew the law with regard to police consent. Police have to police by consent of the people.
That's right, yes.
And so again, you have got common law, which is woven into their oath.
Yes.
So that's also was very useful, which stood us in good stead when they were trying to shut us down and all of that sort of stuff. So yes, I was very vocal, and I was very, how can I say, in the public eye.
Yeah, because did this impact your business at all?
Oh yes, definitely, because there are people that, and I was very vocal about not being vaccinated as well.
Yeah.
There was a campaign that was put together, which was a complete mirror of the government campaign. They had a campaign where they had well-known people in the island, whether it's the deputy bailiff or whoever, the attorney general or the MOH, medical officer of health, and say, "Oh, I'm getting vaccinated because I'm protecting the community, or because I'm a virtue signalling, twat," or whatever it is. And it's like, oh, good God. And this was sort of going out on all the social media. So a friend of mine, one of the warrior women, she's a graphic designer, and she actually used to have her own newspaper in another country. So she's really good at putting together stuff. So we did an inverted campaign called "I will not be getting the COVID experimental injection because," and I was very happy to have my picture there because I work in the health area, and I trust my immune system, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's actually on my Instagram if people scroll down.
Okay.
And then we got a few other people to do it. And you can imagine the authorities went absolutely nuts. And they were said, "Oh, we're impacting on the, what's the rights you have when you've got, what was that?"
Sorry, I was thinking about my court case when the judge said right to life.
Right to life. No, this is about sort of, not quite plagiarism, but you're using our artwork for your campaign and stuff.
The intellectual property.
That's the intellectual property. So we might have to sort of do a bit with that. And so then we thought, well, no, actually, because the taxpayer has paid for it. So hang on a sec, we've paid for it. So whose intellectual property is? It's the people. And so we had that little thing to fight. And then, of course, there were a lot of people who regarded those who were not going along with the dictated narrative as dangerous domestic terrorists, far-right extremists, and I just thought, how can people even think that? We're trying to warn you not to lose your freedom, because once it's gone, it's not coming back.
And we've already seen Keir Starmer lock a nursery nurse up for tweeting something, which is insane. And this is why we did it, though. This is why we did it, isn't it? And like you, I found myself in the same position where I had my right to work taken away because I was bundled into a police van by 6 policemen on the day that I was in a gathering of more than 2.
That's crazy.
Exercising my right to protest. So you and I have trodden a very similar path in that.
Yes.
We came from pretty standard backgrounds, really.
Yeah.
And we just questioned the narrative, and we're going to stand by and watch our friends and families, small businesses and our own, go under. Meanwhile, McDonald's and off licenses can stay open. It just made no sense.
It was absolute madness. And I agree with that. When you think the businesses that were able to stay open, you say off licenses and McDonald's, but gyms had to close down, and sporting events were curtailed because of this ridiculous social distancing, which had absolutely no scientific evidence at all. It was just again, it was a control thing to see how many people went along with it, and people did. They were standing on those circles in the supermarket. It was like, God, what's happened here?
I commend you for having the bravery at the risk of your own business to do what you did. So kudos to you. Let's move on, and let's move on now to you're making things happen. You made yourself known, and now I'm guessing you had the aftermath of the financial implications of a business that's maybe lost some of its customers, lockdown making it chop and change. What happened?
Well, basically, my thermography business basically ground to a halt because I couldn't travel and I couldn't risk traveling to another island and having to isolate or lock down and all of this sort of stuff. So that pretty much stopped.
Yeah.
Being client facing, I had lots of cancellations because people were tracked and traced. You know, they were perfectly well and had to sort of stay at home for a week or 2 weeks. And then, of course, because I was very vocal about where I stood with it all, that there were clients of mine who obviously weren't too impressed by that. So they thought, well, we're not going to go and see her. You know, she might have the virus, and she's also not wearing a mask, and and so there was all of that sort of stuff. But I just thought, no, I'm not going to. It's non-negotiable.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to change. If you have a problem with that, I'm sorry, but I suggest you go and see somebody else. And so, yes, I did lose people. It was a very scary time because there was no money coming in. A little bit here and there, but really not very much. And so I knew at the end of 20, I'm just trying to think of the timeline now. I think it was 22. Yeah, so 2021 was pretty brutal. And then that's when I sold up. So I actually realized that the summer of 21, I needed to make a big change because if I didn't, I would be forced to make it because the banks would probably foreclose on my mortgages. They'd snatch my house, and then where would I be from there? So that was the time I thought, right, I got to sell my house because the housing market was really good at that time. And also because I researched stuff. It's not just stuff in pharmaceuticals and common law and all of that. You know, I was also looking very carefully at the global financial structures, you know, with the Agenda 2020, 2025, what the World Economic Forum had in mind. You will own nothing, but you'll be happy. And the huge debt that America has, which has all been covered up for decades. I just thought, crikey, the world is bankrupt. You know, you can't keep on quantitative easing to, come out of a situation. Yeah. And so for me, it was, I need to get out of debt. Jersey for me was finished because it was just too expensive to live there. I didn't want to keep on doing what I was doing. I was exhausted. And also, you know, I was looking at the issue of the real climate change, you know, the polar flip, mini ice age, read a really good book by John Casey called The Dark Winter, and also connecting with people who were doing a lot of research into space weather and the proper climate change, not the BS with what we're being talked about now.
10%,
the carbon
like
thing.
0.4 of carbon dioxide, yeah.
Exactly. So, I basically had to take the first step. Wasn't too sure where the next step was going to be, but I knew I had to take that first step and get out of debt because I had to borrow money from people. And I just thought I can't see any way out apart from selling up. And so it was December 2021. That's when my property got sold. Then in 2022 was basically looking at the next step. So I'd made the first big step. So first time in my life for a long time, I was like homeless, which was quite a weird situation. Homeless, but with a nice stack of money in my bank, which was quite nice because I could pay everybody off, got rid of everything right down to, you know, car payments, the whole thing. And that's when I'd already connected with people through everything that had happened the sort of previous 2 years. And there was a group of us who were in a position to actually make the move. And so we were looking at Madeira and La Gomera. Nice. And there were reasons why we were looking at those two islands, which may be a conversation for another time. But I'd never heard of La Gomera. I thought, well, and I'd never been to the Canary Islands.
Okay, so let's just, for those who aren't Europeans, Madeira is off the west coast of Portugal, is it?
Yeah, well, it's actually north of the Canaries. Yes, so it is off the west coast of Portugal, and it is a Portuguese territory. Beautiful, beautiful island. And so, yes, there was some quite interesting experiences traveling at that time because, of course, no vacuna, no mascarilla. That was very interesting. And the Guardia Civil don't muck about. So, yes, we had to be prepared with lots of paperwork, should we say.
I see. Yeah, I get you.
and plan our trip very carefully. Because what was interesting is nobody could arrive to the Canary Islands from the UK unless they were fully vaccinated. But you could arrive from Madeira to the Canary Islands just with a negative PCR test.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So that was part of the plan. That was at that time that a few of us did it. So because the thing is, I never ever got the fake vaccine thing, because for me that just went against all of my beliefs. I didn't ever want to be fakely vaccinated. It was like, I'd rather not go to the country. If any country wants that, I'm happy not to ever go there in my life. That was it. So I was only going to go to countries that were sort of, being a bit more lenient about that. Yeah, so that was that little excursion.
La Gomera is part of the Canary Islands.
Yes, it's one of the lesser known, but it is Spanish territory.
Okay.
But each island has its own, should we say, like local government type thing.
Okay. And how many people live on there?
La Gomera, the permanent population is less than 15,000.
Wow. So how many hotels or pubs, bars?
Oh no, it's not like that at all. It's
at all.
like Spain was probably 80 years ago, and that was also part of the draw to
Okay.
it. So people live very much in the traditional way here. I mean, not
Okay.
everybody, obviously. You've got San Sebastian, which is like the main town, but there's much more tradition where people have their little homesteads called fincas.
Oh, nice.
And so there's lots of food here. The climate is fantastic, so you can grow food year round. You have a rainforest, a national park, and that's UNESCO biosphere. So that's absolutely beautiful, and they really protect their sort of natural heritage here.
Okay.
Right down to the stone walls, and terrace farming, which is now registered as hero farming with UNESCO. So it's not the place that, if you want the sort of the Irish bar and the karaoke,
Sure,
don't come
no.
to La Gomera. Stay in Tenerife. We're very happy for you guys to stay there. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So do they have any form of restaurant at all?
Oh yes, there are a few restaurants. It's all very rustico.
Okay, nice.
But what's very interesting is the type of people globally that are drawn to the island. It's got a very, very special energy.
Okay.
And people who, should we say, connect on the esoteric more, look at the island as being very, very special, different reasons. And it is very special. If you just look at the topography, there's lots of like pyramid structures in the mountains. The most extraordinary mountain ranges. For me, it's like the tropical Himalayas, having grown up with beautiful mountains and obviously lived in Jersey for many years with the sea and probably some of the most stunning beaches in the world in Jersey, to sort of have it in one island.
Amazing.
And also the position globally, just below the equator, is where one should be looking at, supposedly.
Okay. And flights in and out? Do you have to hop over to Lanzarote or somewhere?
You fly to Tenerife generally,
Okay.
and then you just get a ferry from Tenerife or Tenerife. You don't say Tenerife is too English. Tenerife to La Gomera. And that's the filter, because, you've got to pay an extra on the ferry to come here. And so for people who just want the sort of Jet2 holiday, all inclusive, well, they wouldn't come to La Gomera because they think, oh, what's there? Oh, there's no bars or only a few restaurants and stuff. But incredible hiking, nature, and also just not crowds of people, which is fabulous.
Yeah, I must admit, I crave a lot of that.
Yes.
So tell us about this transformation of how you feel today. How is this, looking back now on your time at Jersey? I guess there must be some heartache leaving, but how could you sum up the transfer now to La Gomera and how you feel about it? The
transfer now, I mean, it's been a 3-year journey. And of course, there's lots of bumps in the road and twists and turns and all of this. But every day, the gratitude I feel and the joy, and also knowing that I have absolutely no debt and I don't need to work to the clock to sort of pay for what I've got. I just feel so blessed, so abundant in every single aspect of my life. And I don't have any regrets selling. I mean, it was quite a big thing putting my house on the market, because that for me was I'd lived there for many years. It was my rock. I loved the house. I did a lot to it. That was a very big decision. But looking back, I have absolutely no regrets. But you've got to be very focused on your goal. If you haven't got a why am I doing this? And when things get a bit wobbly, it's just like you think, why the hell am I doing this? What's going on? And so for me, my mantra about why I'm doing this hasn't changed. So the reason I moved on was to move to a place where I would have, as much as possible, independence and security in water, food, shelter, community.
Amazing.
And that's it. It's basically Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's the baseline.
100%.
And I've got that. And the thing is community is something that you need to work on. It doesn't happen overnight. I suppose the only thing I do miss is the people, the wonderful community that I connected with in the last 5 years. A lot of new friends, new really, really good friends. And I think a lot of people who have saw it from the word go and took a stand found that they actually lost a lot of friends, including family members.
Yes.
But when you look what you've gained and the connections that we've made in the last few years, absolute gold.
Totally agree.
You probably found that the same, yourself.
Well, you and I are just going to click immediately for all the things that we've done and been through. I hope one day we do meet for sure.
Absolutely. I'm sure we will.
Yeah. So now let's move on to your future. What things have you been exploring recently, and is there anything you want to share with us about what your plans for the future?
Well, the plans for the future is to be here. That's if the Spanish consulate allow me to, because obviously I have a British passport, and that was another sort of hoops that you have to jump through. So I'm just waiting for the Spanish consulate to give me the next 2-year visa. I should get it, but they keep on changing the goalposts on the criteria. So, but I'm not too worried about that, because I'm a great believer that, if things like that come across your way, you just have to think, oh, well, I have to do something different. But the plan is to stay here. I'm learning Spanish, so that's sort of quite a big thing in the tick box list. Also, I have a little place which is attached to the property that I bought, which is completely self-contained. So I've got that on Airbnb. I will take it off Airbnb because I don't agree necessarily with the whole policies, but I've had to have that to show that I have an income-producing asset to the Spanish authorities. Oh my God, this goes so against everything but the thing is, you have to choose your battles, otherwise you just have to live like the wild woman of Borneo in the woods without a phone, and all of that. So the last piece in my puzzle when it comes to sort of like my financial restructuring was to find a way to earn online. Okay. And also to help and inspire other people to do the same. I've been in the wellness sector for many years. And so I've connected, and I'm, on a regular basis, I keep in touch with people who are looking at ways that people can actually detox themselves from the spike proteins and also help themselves with adverse effects from the injection that people were coerced into taking. So I'm very involved in that, but that's not going to be my primary focus because there's other people who are much more knowledgeable, but being a conduit to put people in touch.
Of course.
And also, people's mental well-being is being really challenged at the moment because so many structures that we thought were good and honest and safe are crumbling. For example, AI has just roared into the frame as well, and people are finding that they're losing their jobs a lot quicker than they thought they were going to. So a lot of people are having to sort of reinvent themselves and take a really hard look at what they're doing. And in many cases, people will have to actually sell up, downsize, move to another country, because if where they're living is too expensive, and if you look at your basics, water, food, shelter, community, you probably have great community, but can you afford your shelter, or does it belong to the bank? The banksters. Where are you getting your food? The supermarkets. Where is it being grown? The poor English farmers are all being absolutely slaughtered. And so, people might need to actually look at their basic needs and make a big jump, and it could be to another country. So it's important for people to look at other jurisdictions. I know that people are looking at like Georgia, Montenegro, Croatia. There's other European countries that are actually quite welcoming. So it's just looking at the world as your oyster. And I've got a girlfriend of mine who's just bought a place in Costa Rica. Okay. So, that's an interesting option. And there's little sort of communities, eco villages. So I'm connected to quite a few people who have done what I've done. And what I've done wouldn't necessarily, or the way I've done it wouldn't necessarily work with everybody, but it's the whole ethos of, listen, what do you really want and how are you going to get there? So let's just take the first step. And I think the course that you're offering is absolutely fantastic because it makes people think. And then once people start thinking and realizing that there is another non-traditional ways to make money, because the AI and the internet, of course, it's taken away jobs, but there's also incredible opportunities. And I think the thing is we need to focus on the opportunities, on how we're connecting now. I'm in La Gomera, you're in the UK. How fabulous. We're having a conversation here. And so the last piece in my financial puzzle was actually finding a way to earn online. And so I did look at, quite a few options and looking at how I could use my last 30 years plus in the wellness sector. Could I somehow change that to work online, which I've done, but it was a very expensive course and it's something that I will be using, but on a different platform. It's going to be much more sort of bespoke. So I won't go into that, but it's not something I would necessarily tell people who haven't got experience in the wellness sector to go and do.
Yeah.
Because they just spend a lot of money and find it very difficult to find their clients. And so I've been involved in the travel business. Now, this sort of went a little bit against my thing of, revolutionary and all of this thing when the being in the wellness world. But then I looked at it and I thought, well, actually, hang on a minute. This is an incredible opportunity for people that do work in the wellness sector, for example, because, client facing, you don't work, you don't earn. So to actually have a side hustle, or I hate to call it hustle because I think you need to look at it as a professional business, but an additional income stream, doing something which you can get into very, very easily. There's a very low ingoing and you can work as much or as little as you want. If you put a lot of effort into something and you follow the tried and tested protocols, which have worked very well for many people who are now earning a very good living from it, then there's no reason why anybody can do it. So I see this as a great way to empower people to actually start now to work towards where they want to be in 3 years' time. Because I think you've got to look at least 2 to 3 years to get you to where you want to be. But of course, as you're going along the path, it might go slightly this way and it might go slightly that way. But you've got to get on the journey and you have to know what you want.
Yes, 100%.
And I think this is where what you're doing is really fantastic because it really drills people down to be very honest with themselves.
Yeah, we do a deep dive where we look at the person's value system, what their passions, interests, and hobbies are, and experience and skill. So we build a business up around those things so that it aligns with their values and it's something they're passionate about ultimately, which is always going to fuel the why and make the hard times a whole lot easier. So tell us a bit more about this business. It's in the travel industry. Tell us a bit more.
Okay, so basically the travel company is called IntelliTravel. That's an American company that's been in the travel sector for 36 years. Okay. And it was I think it was about 2001, they actually changed their whole business model for it to be an at-home model. So they took away the sort of high street shops, which are obviously going out anyway. And then they linked up with Planet Marketing to use the incredible network marketing model with travel as the product. And so I know about network marketing because I was involved in it about 18 years ago. And I think it's probably one of the most genius business models, which allows anybody, any little person to actually do very well in selling something. I mean, it could be personal care products, supplements, water purifiers. I mean, there's so many things that are actually sold by network marketing or affiliate links. That's exactly the same. So I thought, well, this is really interesting because I do like to travel. And, part of the sort of travel I want to do is more adventure travel rather than the sort of Jet2 holiday to, an all-inclusive, which is fine for families. I'm certainly not dissing it, but it's not something that I would be interested in. But then when I sort of understood that there's commission is worked into all prices anyway. So if you go online to Expedia or Booking.com or whatever, the commission is already worked into it. So
Yeah.
if you book through your own platform IntelliTravel, this is after you've become an independent travel agent, you will then earn your commission back after you've had your holiday. So instead of booking.com or whatever getting it, you get it. So I thought, well, that's amazing. And then a lot of people actually book trips, family trips, or if it's a girls' getaway to a city break or something, there's always one person that does all the bookings and does this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And so that I saw as being available to anybody.
Absolutely.
And anybody, wherever they're at, whether they're a mum at home or somebody working in the corporate world, which is just, they're burnt out and they just want to start, dovetailing another income stream that can come online really well in 2 or 3 years' time if you build up your network. And so basically with network marketing, you build your team. And so you will actually earn a little bit of what your team does, and then people below them build their team, and then it could be somebody which is below you which will really go for it, and they could out earn the person that signed them up, which you can't do in the corporate world. You'll never be able to earn more than the CEO. And there's people in my wider network, they're on residual income, which is the way we need to look at things. So instead of the greedy 1% getting all the profits, this is spread among the little people.
I love it.
And I think, with my conspiratorial hat on, that who are they, that's a big question, don't actually want the little people doing this, because people who are self-employed, self-sufficient, are much more difficult to control, aren't they?
Absolutely. So let me just pick up on a few things that you said in our previous conversation, and that this is a home-based business where you set up as a travel agent and you've got access to all the bed banks, all the hotel bed banks, flights, and you can bespoke holidays for friends and family. And then if you really want to get out there, you can book for your warm market. And you can be out there positioning yourself under your own brand, and this can be a white labeled thing sat underneath your brand, so that you're essentially setting up as an independent travel agent. And like you say, it's not just your income, but it's everyone who you talk to you think might have a network who might like to do this. So
yes, that's essentially it. I mean, but basically it's even better than the sort of the bed banks, because you have access to travel partners. Now these travel partners are, dare I say, some of the best in the industry. I mean, for example, you've got Etihad Holidays, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Abercrombie and Kent, all of the big cruise liners. So you don't have to actually bespoke the holiday unless you really want to. But for example, if somebody wants to go to the Far East, you'd go on to, Kontiki Travels or Wendy Wu Travels, and you'd see what packages they've already got organised. So they've been in their business and they're specialists in their area for 30 plus years.
Okay.
And so you're just the broker, as it were, the conduit between your client, your customer, but you will then learn, oh yes, you want to go and so, well, let's have a look at what Plum Guide has, because they're very good for XYZ. And so the ladies and gentlemen, shall we say, who have done really, really well with this, they've niched in a particular market. So rather than being sort of broad, I mean, there's one lady, she just specializes in solo holidays for women over 50 or something, that sort of thing. Nice. So women who want to go and, go traveling and perhaps, cooking in Tuscany or a trip to the Arctic or whatever, obviously depending how much money they have. And so that's how she promotes her brand. So she has her own branded travel company, but everything is through IntelliTravel, because they're all ABTA, ATOL protected. So all the compliance is there. That's why you need to do their basic training. And then you do individual training with the individual travel providers. So all about how they work. And that's where you decide where you want to niche, because it's 90, you could spend a whole year doing it. Okay. But then you don't have to set yourself up as a travel agent. There's a lot of people who actually do this, and they have the benefits of being a travel agent, but for them it's more building up their network, their business.
Okay.
And helping others to actually get into a business and mentoring them, plugging them into the training calls, plugging them into the small group training calls. And that's where I'm headed for, shall we say. I'm much more interested in empowering people to take control of where they're at and to have a plan to get to where they want to be in a shorter period of time, but also being very focused that, you have to have a plan. You don't need to know the end goal, but you need to know where you're starting from.
Yes.
And also the fact that I've done the whole thing of, going to another country with the whole visa thing, I'm very happy to chat to people about that. Of course, everybody's situation is different, but I see this as very much as an extension of the wellness world that I was in for so many years, but using this as an incredible, should we say, vehicle for people to get on.
Yeah.
And if they do want to, especially people who are artists and creatives, they might not be making very much money, but they love to do their, creative arts. So yes, the money side, why don't you do this alongside it? Because it actually complements, really well. And of course, it's fun to travel. It's fun to find out about, different countries. And so even just exploring a trip for a friend, or should we say a client, depending how that can be exciting in itself. So I just see it as an incredible start for people who want to get a second income stream.
And that's brilliant. Hedi, I've really enjoyed listening to you about this opportunity, because I've looked at quite a few of these too. And, as with all small home-based businesses, it's about your energy, your focus and your drive. But if there's any go-getters out there who've got a network, this could be absolutely ideal, because it's low cost to entry. And like you say, we've all traveled. We've just got to learn how bookings work and how a system works. And then you're up and running, aren't you?
Absolutely. And I think, the key is it's a low cost entry. And I think this is why people might get a bit suspicious, because I think, well, £156, I mean, that's sort of a lunch out in Jersey. And I know that there's other travel businesses where the ingoing is like £5,000. I won't say the name of the place, but you have to basically pay £5,000 to get in, and you certainly don't get the benefits that you get with the network marketing aspect of IntelliTravel, because just getting commissions from booking travel can be very good, but if you've got your network doing that and you build up a big network, you could be on six-figure salary or six-figure earnings, should we say, of residual income. And the residual income is basically earning money when you're not working.
Yes, 100%.
That's what we all want, isn't it?
No, it is the golden goose, but it is achievable for those who are willing to put in the effort and stay consistent, for sure.
And what you say, Robin, is about staying consistent. There's a lot of people, and you probably find this with people who are maybe setting up a business, selling their courses. The first roadblock they come to, like somebody said, oh, well, that's a bit of a rubbish idea, or they don't want to be involved, or they say no. It's like, oh no, and it's putting yourself out there on the public forum to have your finger pointed at, or you're not doing that scammy whatever thing. And so this is where network marketing, or anything where you are self-employed, you have to actually develop a really thick skin, and you have to be very focused on where you want to be, and get your community around you. So make sure that you're connecting with like-minded people who are on the same journey, because you can encourage each other, laugh about your setbacks. But basically, you stick and stay, you will get your pay. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, you've got to stick and stay for at least 2 years before you even see, serious money coming in.
That's right.
Having said that, with this business, you can be in the green very quickly. In the green means it's actually not costing you any money, but you're not making a lot of money. And that I think is a really good place to be.
Yeah, and for big bookings, let's say you booked a hen holiday and everyone's cost was £1,500 and you booked 10 girls away. So that's a £15,000 booking. What's the commission? What's the commission on something like that?
Well, it depends on the bookings. The best commission is from the cruise liners. You get between 15 and 20%, which is really good. Car hire and all of that is only 5%. So on average, it's between 8 and 15%.
Okay, very good.
So still very good. So if you sort of think, say you've got a £20,000 holiday, say 10% of that.
Nice.
Not a bad evening's work, is it?
Like you say, though, the thing that I like about this is the commission's baked into a booking you do yourself online. So why not earn it for
Exactly.
yourself? You know, for those that are thinking, this is pyramid scheme. No, it's just a distribution model. And if you check the FTSE 250, there's one on there called Utility Warehouse. And I used to do it before the days of the internet really took off.
Yeah.
It was hard work because it was no internet. But
Mm.
I've heard it's a lot better now. But that's a FTSE 250, and it's a utility company regulated by Ofcom and Ofgem. And much like that in the travel industry, and you've got the accreditation there by the regulators. And it's
Yes.
just another distribution model. And in your network, there'll be some that make it, some that don't. And that's just the nature of the beast. But I look at it as a bit like the parable of the sower. You know, you're going to sow some seeds, some will get scorched in the sun, some will get strangled by the weeds, but then some
Yeah.
will grow and be watered and be absolutely amazing in your team.
Absolutely, and I think this is the great thing. You just have to accept that there's people that are going to come and go. You know, there's people that will come along but not do anything. But that's okay, because the community aspect of this, I was actually pleasantly surprised how good it is.
That's good to hear.
And I think especially for people who are maybe feeling a little bit lonely, or they just think, God, I'm surrounded by losers. Nobody wants to do anything. To actually be connected, even though it's virtually, with go-getters is very, very uplifting.
Perfect.
I've found it very uplifting, and I wasn't in a dark place, because I've made some incredible friends here from all over the world, really. But I really, really enjoy connecting with my travel network people, because we're all there sort of building our businesses together, celebrating each other's wins, and laughing and commiserating with, shall we say, bumps in the road. So even if somebody is maybe suffering with depression for all sorts of reasons, it's like, well, why don't you just do this for a bit? Because if you can cover your costs in a few months, which you can once you learn the system and you're consistent with it, you're connected to some incredible people. It's easier in the UK because most of the people are UK based. And so, there's different areas where you can meet up with people, and there's conventions and stuff like that. I'm going to one in London in November, which I'm really excited about.
Well,
So, yeah.
I'm excited for you. And also, I know that in these companies, there tends to be personal development materials that they support your kind of mental growth and
Huge. Yeah.
positivity, which is important, I think.
Very, very important. The mindset training and the coaching, which I know some people have actually paid an awful lot of money for coaching programs. I mean, we get some of the top coaches globally that actually come and offer live Zoom calls. I mean, Fraser Brooks is one of them, Eric Worre. You might have heard of these names, a guy called Daniel G. It's all sort of sales, mindset training, really, really good. And I've had small businesses over the last 30 plus years. And I thought, God, if I only knew half of what I'm learning in the last few months, I certainly wouldn't have perhaps made some of the mistakes that I did.
Absolutely. Now, I've put together a reading list on my website. It's called Robbins Reads, and it's I think it's my top 20 titles for personal development.
Oh, I'd love to see that. Yeah.
So go to my website, unpluggedandunstoppable.com, look on resources and sign up for Robbins Reads, and you'll get one a day for the next 20 days. But in the meantime, Hedi, how can people get in touch with you about your opportunity?
Okay, probably the best way at the moment is through Instagram.
Okay.
You can always send me a message. I've got 2 pages. I've got my main page, Hedi Green Jersey, and then I have set up my business page, which is Hedi_Ventures. So on either of those two, you can, people can send me a message, and then I'll be very happy to, if they want to have a chat, we can do it on WhatsApp. Or Zoom, or whatever, or if people just want to have a little bit of information, I'm very happy to send it to them. So that will be the best way.
Okay, now I'm going to sum up with a couple of questions. So if you had a microphone to the world right now, Hedi, what would you say to the world if you could speak to them now for 60 seconds or a minute?
Gosh, that's quite a loaded question, isn't it?
It is. Do you want a minute, and I'll ask you another one?
A microphone to the world. Wow. Yeah, that might be quite a sort of a brutal emergency broadcast system. I'm not quite sure how to answer that one, but now ask me another one.
Okay, so your values, Hedi. I've heard a few of them in the things that you've said, like family, freedom, connection, but that's my take on who you are. How would you sum up your values?
My values, yes, definitely human connection, community, but, accepting everybody at face value. And I think what we all need to really get away from is this divide and rule, which we've been under for decades.
Yes.
And not judge people by the country that they're born in, the race that they're born into, the religion that they have, but to look at them as an individual, a fellow human being, a divine sovereign being. Of course, there are good and bad people in this world. I like to think that there's actually more good people in this world than the evil ones. I think they're all at the top of the tree, the 1%. But yes, I think it's being accepting and also raising your vibration all the time, also checking into yourself and saying, how am I feeling about this? What am I watching? What is that actually doing to me? Is it making me angry? Is it making me anxious? And if it's any of those things, it's like, well, just stop it. Because there's a lot of news and misinformation and too much information. And if it's causing you to become anxious, angry, depressed, I think you have to actually step away from it and immediately go out into nature, really focus on your breath, getting your bare feet on the ground, grounding yourself. So I think it's important for us humans to survive with everything that's going on, is to always check into yourself and also to sort of review maybe how you dealt with a challenging situation. Did I overreact? Was I angry there? Or can I maybe respond in a more gentle way?
Yes.
And I think if we all do that in sort of every aspect of our lives, is just take a step back, take a breath. Maybe this person is behaving that way because they have got some major issues. Perhaps we'll try and look beyond that, even though maybe they're being very offensive. But also stepping away from stuff. I'm much less tolerant than I used to be. It doesn't mean I'm there being angry at people, but I do actually take myself out of negative situations or people I just think, you're just draining me, and just very, very sort of politely just back away and avoid contact with them.
Protective of your energy, though. That's self-preservation, though, isn't it?
You got to protect your energies, and you need to check in with yourself. I think that's important, because if you're very balanced and you're vibrating on a level of love, authenticity, kindness, and all of those things, you're going to be able to be subconsciously bringing harmony into the situations that you find yourself in. It's like the collective consciousness. Even if you think you can't do anything to change what's going on in the world, you can raise your vibration, and that will have an effect.
I'm guessing La Gomera presents you quite a few opportunities to do just that.
Yes, yeah. There's lots of amazing, shall we say, groups and gatherings, movements. Maybe is a word. The universal meditations. There's small groups that come together, and they just the intention experiment that Lynn McTaggart is so good at doing. And if we go out there with intention to bring joy and joining, and to not to be part of the division, then we actually are very powerful with our frequencies.
Absolutely. Now, Hedi, I think that's a really nice way to reach the end of this conversation, because not only have you shown us how you've unplugged from your situation, and I can see you're clearly on your way to becoming completely unstoppable. And you've brought a lovely energy to this conversation, though, because you're a freedom fighter, but yet you're really sensitive to humanity's needs, and we all need people like you. So I just want to acknowledge you for your journey so far, and I've really appreciated you coming on.
Well, I've really enjoyed speaking to you, Robin, and I think it's really fantastic what you're doing and your journey, which has obviously been to some quite dark places as well. But to come out the other side with solutions, I think that's the only way to go, is solutions and support, really, isn't it?
And we're building a community on our website, so at some point we'll have some groups to announce. But thank you for helping me get my 4th podcast off the ground. It's been an absolute pleasure, Hedi. Until we meet again. See you again.
Yes, soon. I'm very honoured to be at the start of this journey. So thank you very much. I'm very, very happy that you asked me and given me the opportunity to share some of my story.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Hedi, and see you again soon.
Okay, thank you, Robin.
I feel a shift now, I've got to move off the floor, 'cause I'm unplugged and unstoppable. No force could ever break this mold of titanium. You can't shake me, oh, 'cause I'm unplugged, unplugged. I'm unplugged, unplugged. I'm unplugged, unplugged and unstoppable. Yeah, Now I'm reborn into a new life. I choose my new life and leave my old one behind. Yeah, 'cause when I open my eyes now to look, I see so much more. I feel a shift now and I've got to move off the floor, 'cause I'm unplugged and unstoppable. No force could ever break this mold of titanium.